giving you a medical report is not necessarily a complaint. They're being real. The bad part is that when I think my back is thrown out, and I think I'm having a heart attack. I think my sugar's up. I just don't feel good. Those are complaints because we need to know that when something ails us, and I always talk about this, church and home, when something ails you, you need to do something about it. You need to find out what it is. We can go to God always and just ask God to take care of us, but when we're dealing with other people, we need to have some wisdom on how to address their issues also. And they're not necessarily, I hear what you said, but I don't think they're necessarily complaining unless you got a person who is, I won't talk about it. Me and Joe was in Philadelphia at the hospital and a chronic complainer came in from my family. Y'all don't know. Well, you don't know well. But, oh Lord. And then George had waited 2 hours already to visit the niece of mine up there. And then the mama came in. It was time for us to go. We stayed like 10 minutes after mama got there. Because the mama go back and start just a chronic complaining. And I got this word in here. And I know it's trying to protect itself. I got NAG, N-A-G, NAG. And that's not like y'all know nagging and getting on people's nerves. It's called national attention grabbers. National attention grabbers. That's my nag. Yeah, I used to tell my students that person, NAGA, N-A-G-A, National Attention Grabbers Association. Because it's a group of people that every time you see them, they're complaining. Every time you see them, they're complaining. Remember I preached and I told y'all the story about John and Phil, and after a while John got tired of Phil and started crossing the street when he saw him, because Phil was gonna come up with a complaint. Those are the people that we try to, I think, we try to show on those people. But if we ask them how they doing, and what that song out a few years ago when country song say, I asked but I really didn't want to know, or something like that. See, I asked you how you doing, but gosh, I didn't expect all of that. You're expecting them to give you a positive response at some time or another. Okay.
How you doing? And I know we're gonna start singing. I'm back here. But after he finished every all the complaints, my job is to tell him about all the good stuff about him. And then he started feeling good about himself. He gonna tell me my baby.
And we do have people who prefer to do that at all times. Because they have a need for attention. Yes, sir.
Isn't how you doing is just a polite, you really not asking how to person, how you doing?
Yeah.
And then they start telling you, well, this, really, you're supposed to say the polite thing is, how you doing? And I'm pretty good, and God, what you taking me through and like that. You might want to know, well, that's what you they say, ain't nobody listening anyway.
I tell you about, I probably said it before about Mr. Ed. He used to be senior vice president of the Christianity Care System. And he would always see me coming and speak. So, how are you today? And then some days, when I see him first, I say, how are you? The fact they get. And he be gone. You know what that means? I don't want to talk. So sometimes, when some of the people that complain speak to you, you have to say, fine, thank you, keep moving. Because they're going to wait you down. Okay. All right. I don't know if we did anything important about it. Okay. Promoting self. Boasting. Oh, no one I think. Okay, promoting self. I did I skip something? Oh yeah, I did.
Lisa, step one was pray.
Yeah.
Step two,
Okay. I said, enter God into the situation, that's prayer. And then you should stand on faith, that's what I said, stand on faith, that he will keep his promises, that was number 2. Okay? And Psalms 115 and 11, say, fear and trust in the Lord, and he will be your help and your shield. God will be your help and your shield if you fear him and trust him, okay? That's Psalms 115 and 11. Self-promoting, that's boasting. Boasting and taking all the credit, showing off, doing all the talking, demanding all the attention. That's where my nag come in. Demanding all the attention. Because you think you're most important. And I'm going to talk about Pastor again. You were on the Friday night. Pastor Anderson was testifying. She said, yeah, that's why they don't have testimony church no more. I had 2 attention grabbers years ago with testimonies. I think Mika and Linda probably know, so I won't call that. I won't call that name when you go way back. But one would testify for 15 minutes, and then the other would get up and testify for 18 minutes. And one had to beat the other testifying. And so we had to stop testimony service. Okay, and all that was about was attention. And then I had another person who, at one time, when we was at the community center, we didn't have the front door, I go to the door and stuff like that, because we had, the way we had things set up at. And so when I did the benediction, we had another fellow who would just virtually call me off and talk to me until almost everybody in the church was gone. So I didn't get to greet anybody because his greeting me and spending time with me was far more important to him than anybody else. Another attention grabber, protecting themselves, okay? Had jobs in the church and yet, had to protect themselves by getting all the attention. Okay? Self-promoting. Self-promoting.
Bishop,
Yes, sir.
that's one of the reasons why, maybe allow people to speak after the preacher because you get small sermonettes.
Do I need to get that started? Yeah. And that's exactly why we don't. That's exactly why we don't. A lot of times people want to say something after the preacher because the preacher stirs them up to be wound up just right.
So I'm taking a pedagogy course right now, right?
What? I didn't understand.
I'm taking a pedagogy course right now, how to teach. And we talk about, and I talk about the people that's always like, raising their hand and answering a question. And so I'm wondering in a church context, so the strategies they recommend is like either like pulling people to the side and saying like, oh, you have a good point, like basically complimenting them, but then like saying, but we're gonna get everybody else involved. Or just straight up going to the jugular and saying, you need to be quiet. So I'm wondering, in this context, as leaders in church, what strategy do you promote? So is it kind of like flattering people and like telling them, like, hey, be cognizant that other people need to testify, or is it just, when is the time to like go to the jugular? Because sometimes I feel like, sometimes that could be necessary. Maybe not in this context, which is all I'm asking.
Anybody want to answer that before I do?
Yes. I don't think we never go to the jungle. Because the Bible says, you do whatever you do in love. So you have, as a church setting, in the world, it goes to the jungle all the time. I think you should use No,
make them
that's
power.
that, Bible says, all flattery tongue should be cut off. I think you should, if you, will need to talk to someone, I really enjoyed your questions, but you need to give some other chance. That's it. You're not flattering, you're not complimenting, just take it back. Some other chance. And you can say it in the midst of the congregation, and like you do, Bishop, I think on people, I feel like you. You are crazy. And I can take it as an insult, you know, I mean, because I'm a little bit crazy, I'm crazy with Jesus. I guess my opinion.
We got an educator, you know, let's, what you got to say?
I would agree with you, sister. We never want to hurt people at all. But I think we have to remember that people who are in the church are hurting. And they all show that hurt in different kinds of ways. What I do in situations like that is to give everybody a chance to speak at least once before you go back to a person a second or third time. But we must never be insensitive to folks. And the scriptures tell us to be, he that wins souls is wise. As leaders, we should really be looking at the person more than listening with that second ear, looking with that other eye, to really see what they're saying to you. Why are they really coming to you? And sometimes we have to struggle. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with making people feel good. In fact, if you don't make people feel good, they're going to hurt more, and you're going to lose folks. So, in answer to your question, I think that what we always have to be is mindful of who we are. And the more prideful we are, the more we think we can't speak to them a second or third time, the more we think, well, I've already spoken to you 2 or 3 times. So we have to kind of humble ourselves and pick ourselves up. And with that acronym fear, I was taught fear was false evidence appearing real. So when people are coming to you and saying that they're feeling good and all that kind of stuff.
You say evidence, and that's the expectation.
Yeah, sorry, evidence. What's the evidence?
You talking to me.
When you hurt me, no, but seriously, you gotta feel where they're at. You know, what's going on there? Just real fast, I gotta say this. Yeah, just real fast, let me say this. I came to church today. The first thing that was said to me by a beloved person was that looks like I'm losing my ear.
I did not say that. I said your head is coming up through your hair. Okay, but I got you going. Look, I mean, Alicia. Yeah, when I did the teacher thing, and we talked about that, knowing your audience, knowing your students, and if you got problem people, you got to know those people, and you use a different approach to everybody. You got to do an individual thing, and sometimes it may be, and of course, it's always good when you pull people to the side and let them open, yeah, okay, you're going for the juggler in front of everybody. You know, they need privacy. And so, you know, you pull them to the side, and of course, if they got good questions, yeah, I enjoy your questions. Your questions stimulate thought and conversation and discussion. That's a good thing. But then we need to hear the opinions of others. We need to hear the opinions of others. So come on, first of all. You're good. Always. Don't my daddy said. Dad told us a story, said men preach on love all the time. Said, when they gonna stop preaching on love? The preacher said, when they start loving one another, stop preaching on love. So you stop pulling them to the side when they get the message. Some people don't get it. You know, we like to talk about this in front of classes. We all learn in different ways. Some write it down and some are visual. Some listen to audio and stuff and get it. So we all are different. So we have to kind of work on that. But Teresa, I think, does that help you?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's just, I know, I asked the question, I know the concept appropriate, but I'm just.
Okay. All right, good enough. Okay, we're down to the last couple minutes. Next week, we're supposed to start on the head, so promote yourself and self-protection, that was the last one. Okay, self-protection is discouraging feedback, controlling everything, withholding information, intimidating others, and finally, hiding behind your title. hiding behind your title. I'm it, I'm this, I'm that, and that's how you operate. You cannot operate that way and be a good leader. I mean, okay, protecting self, discouraging feedback. You discourage people from giving you feedback because you don't want to hear what they got to say. Okay? You're controlling everything. And you know what? That's why I learned this years ago. And that's why I try to share as much as I can. Because when you're not controlling everything, you get more positive feedback than you have any idea. Okay. Withholding information. Sometimes you hold back. And I like to say this, a few years ago, all the pastors was worried about the 501(c) and being, being, what you call the word for IRS, being in compliance, yeah, being in compliance. And so as a part of the national group, all you had to do was pay your reports and all that kind of stuff, and you would be in good standing with the national church, would issue you a letter stating that you were in good standing with the national church, and therefore, all your people of your church were in compliance under the 501(c), which was a group 501(c). But we were in fear, a lot of us, because our leader used to tell us, if y'all don't do what I need to do, I got the number. And we were in the beginning thinking there was a special number that was given. It wasn't a number, it was a letter. But he was withholding that information because that's the way boss did, just coming out of Black history, that's the way boss did. That's why he said, we can't let them read. Because if they read, they become too wise. We gotta let them out of the dark. Are they gonna fight their way out of the dark? They're gonna challenge everything we say. So withholding information gives us the authority then that we need or the power to keep people under control. Okay? So we try to share as much information. Like Colleen asked me, said, do you have a hand up? And I said, no. I said, no, I don't want to give it to them until after because they sit on the town meeting. I want to have their undivided attention. Okay? That's one of the teaching tricks. Okay? But it's still control. All right? Okay. All right, so I try to be fair, but I had to remember the whole page. Okay. Next week we'll go to the head, but I will complete this other page that I have next week in the beginning of the night of the class, and then we'll go to head. The next domain of leading IT, the head. All right? So I quit here. I said 8:30, it's 8:30. We got some of the babies out, so we respect that. I appreciate y'all coming up. I really do. Encourage everybody else to come and take a meeting. If they're not working, they have these other questions. Okay, any announcements? Yes, ma'am.
The leadership workshop this weekend.
Leadership workshop this weekend over on Lancaster Avenue, 7 o'clock Friday night for a couple of hours, and from 10 to 1 on Saturday. And I tell you again, I will not be there on Saturday, so please go out, join. It's all going to be good. We're going to learn. We're all going to learn. We can't learn enough about leading God's people. If we listen to what Moses had to say, there was a tough job. Very tough job. And Jesus gave his lifetime to demonstrate it. Okay?
Bishop, I'll share this Sunday, but there's going to be a seminar or conversation Thursday, March 10th, from 6 to 8. It's called Race and Health, the impact of racism on individuals and organizational environments. And if you don't think racism doesn't affect your health, it does. It's going to be in Wilmington, Delaware, but there is a flyer, and it is free, so you do have to register.
So So on March 11th, from 12:30 to 12:30 to 2 on campus, I'm hosting a conference on, a professor from University of Maryland is coming down to talk about what we know about the black middle class, whether or not it's shrinking or growing, how it's, more populated by females than males, and the sustainability of, economic mobility in the black community. So I'll give, Sister Sylvia.
What time is
It's 12:30, it's like in the middle of the day, I know, but I go to school for it.
Yes, Michelle.
So this is those that are wanting to go to the movies and on Saturday. I'm not able to get the movie times until Thursday for the weekend. However, I was told that they usually start between 11:30 and 12. So I will, get with those that said they were coming by Thursday evening to let you know exactly what time the movie starts. And looking forward to fellowshipping with the women. If any questions, please give me a call. Just let everybody who has my phone number already know somebody that has it.
And again, thank everyone for coming to us, and let's keep everyone in prayer to come out prayer list, Bishop Corbett, so he's, doing better, he's at home, he's planning to be out this weekend, so, let's keep them in prayer. Bishop Anderson?
My grandmother, Miss Beverly Spencer.
Yeah. Oh, back to the water thing, y'all have, support you know, Bishop, not Bishop, Dr. Beaman gave me a call today and said his truck left. He said he received the letter. He always called me his bishop, but I don't want my bishop to be mad at me.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Oh, Dr. Anderson. I'm glad to know that.
We thank you, God, for your word, and that word is not itself in the mind to our pastor. We thank you for our bishop, our instructor. And Lord God, help us to apply your word to our everyday life, that none of these things slip from our hearts. Help us to be good servant leaders. So we ask in Christ's name,